My name's Kira Taj. I'm the Senior Associate at Bessie Tart Wilson Initiative for Children. Here in the office with me as well is Erin Anguish, our Marketing Specialist. We're excited to be sharing information about the roadmap to a college degree today, and we're very happy to have Ashley Norwood from American Student Assistance also with us. She will be presenting information on student loan management and answering any questions you might have. We really want you to have questions, for the presenters during this session. For now, we have you on mute just so you don't have to worry about any outside noises or phones in your office disturbing the webinar, but we will unmute you at a later time. If you have any questions, though, or comments, you can type them on the right-hand side of, or the left or the right, I think it's the left-hand side of your screen. And just let us know what your question is anytime. If you're having trouble hearing us, there is an option to call in. You can call in using the audio tab. You can click on that and it'll tell you the phone number to call into if you're having trouble hearing or would rather use your phone. So just briefly, we're going to share a few slides and then we're going to go online. The Bessie Tart Wilson Initiative for Children is a nonprofit organization focused on improving the quality of early education and care in Massachusetts. So we conduct grassroots research, engage a variety of collaborators, and influence policy in order to bring about change in the early education and care system. And our organization is named after Bessie Tart Wilson, who you see in this picture. We like to show this to folks. She is in the middle there. She's one of the first women of color in Boston to open up an early education and care program out of her home. And the founder of our organization, Mary Reed, is right in front of her in the picture. It's her daughter. So we love that, from 1946. So we do a lot of projects focused on early education and care, and one of them is an online web page and resource that individuals can access from any computer or phone. And so we created it in 2012. It's available in 5 languages: English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Chinese. It's meant to provide educators with easily understandable information about navigating the higher education system. And I do want to say, we know that simply obtaining a degree does not make for a high-quality educator. Many people in the field have years of experience and really specialized skills in early childhood, even if they don't have a degree. So just obtaining a degree shouldn't be the only single most important destination for all educators in our system. However, we do know that the current reality is that educators are feeling the pressure of obtaining a degree, and the QRIS, as well as other standards, do value degrees, and so we thought it was important to compile information about higher education for that reason, to help educators gather information and at least be able to make the decision for themselves. So today we're going to show you the roadmap online. We're going to walk through it, and then we're also highlighting the issue of student loans with our guest speaker from American Student Assistance. And so I wanted to just take a moment to ask if anyone has anything in particular that they really would like to have covered through this session. If you can take a minute to just type it in the chat box, in the questions box, just let us know if there's anything in particular you really want to learn and get out of this webinar. Great. So in a second, we're going to look at the Early Educators Roadmap to a College Degree online. And I want to just take the time to show you what it looks like if you haven't already seen it. So here is the roadmap page when you go online. The address is up at the top, www.btwic.org/roadmap. And this pop-up that comes up is really just for our use. We are wanting to connect with people that are using the resource, so we ask people for their email addresses. And we circle back and try to get short surveys completed by people so that we know how people are using it and if they're finding it helpful. So just so you know, that's why that pops up, and you can exit it as well at the bottom. So here's the home page. It shows you the 5 languages, and today we're just going to click on and use the English version. So at the beginning there is an introductory sort of description of the roadmap, and if you scroll down you see sort of shortcuts to the 8 steps. The roadmap is comprised of 8 steps that all gather information and helpful hints about certain features of thinking about higher education. So step 1, for example, there's a metaphor for each step, and they're all sort of related to going on a road trip, you know, the roadmap to success. And step 1 is really the crossroads. Determine your starting point. And so, for example, some considerations to think about is this a good time for me? Is this a good move for me? Am I going to get a salary increase by earning a degree in my program? Do I need to think about, you know, how it's going to fit into my schedule? Do I have existing student loans that I have to make sure that I handle and think about financially before I start thinking about new financing for higher ed? And we'll talk more about that in a second. And then each step has a section called helpful hints and links. And these links are basically links that are existing resources that we pull together just to make sure that it's all in one place and that these are places that educators can go to find more information. So if we click on the first link, this College for Adults site, this is a site specifically sort of created for people that are experienced in their fields. They're older. They are not, you know, sort of the younger, right out of high school student. And this site has resources that's tailored for them. And then if we go down and show you the second step, the second step is that we really want to encourage people to connect with existing supports and resources. So considerations are reaching out to people that you may know that may already have gotten a degree. Helpful hints are really to ask coworkers, and we really want to stress the educator and provider support grantees and networks that do exist through the EEC, and make sure that people know that they can reach out to them. They are tasked with helping early educators and providers think about career and higher education decisions. So if you click on that, you'll see the different regions, and if you scroll down, who's assigned to each region. So I hope all of you have gotten a chance to see that. And then we have the rest of the steps, really choosing the right institution. And we have, for example, a link to the Early Educator Scholarship Fund. We really want to make sure people know that there is that scholarship money specifically for early educators, and a new video that they posted. Step 4, applying for admission. Step 5, looking at the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and so thinking about how to fill out the financial information and figure out how to apply for scholarships and grants and loans. And step 6, checking for gas, looking at your financial aid options. Step 7, accessing supports at school. And then, you know, enrolling, continuing your education, and then thinking about managing your student loans. So that's sort of the overview in terms of what's on the roadmap itself. This has gone through a few iterations since we created it a few years ago. We really created this with an advisory group of people that gave us input, that helped contribute and update the resources. We're always looking for input from other folks in terms of what other information should be on this website, what other information is helpful for folks, and things to consider as we move forward and as the field changes and as the higher education system and the market changes. So right now we're happy to have Ashley Norwood with us. I'd like to hand it over to her. She's our guest speaker from American Student Assistance, and she will talk to you about what she knows. She's an expert on existing student loans, managing student loans, and we're really happy to have you here, Ashley, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kira. So thank you for that introduction. I am the Consumer and Regulatory Advisor at American Student Assistance in the Center for Consumer Advocacy. So my role here is to be a compelling voice for students and borrowers in the college financing process. I work to ensure students of all backgrounds have the opportunity to succeed in college and beyond. My main objective is to develop sound policies and an advocacy platform that improves the circumstances of students and borrowers. And ASA's mission is to assist students and student loan borrowers with financial literacy and student loan debt management. Our vision is to have 0% financial struggle for all students. That doesn't mean we are necessarily advocating for free college for all or forgiveness of all loans, but we are working to educate people to understand how to find a good financial fit for college. We offer our services for free to students and student loan borrowers through our website, saltmoney.org. We do this by educating college. This website is designed to educate college goers about evaluating college choices, how to calculate net prices, and how to borrow and repay student loans smartly. So I'm going to give you a brief overview, and this is kind of a 10,000-foot overview about how you can get your own information about student loans and interest rates, what repayment options there are for you, especially the income-driven options, and a summary about public service loan forgiveness. Excuse me. So let's dive right in. So where do you find your loans? That's one of the questions I get a lot is I don't even know what I signed for, where my loans are, how many loans I have, or what I've borrowed. So your first stop would be the National Student Loan Data System, which is for short NSLDS. It's a federal site run by the federal U.S. Department of Education. This site will show all of your federal student loans and who holds them. You could log onto the site with your FSA ID, which is what you use to apply for financial aid through the FAFSA while you were in college in the first place. Don't worry if you don't remember it, because a lot of people don't. You can request a new one if you don't remember, but that's the site you can go to find all of your federal loan information and who you would contact if you had questions about your federal loans. Now, if you have private loans, or if you're not sure, or you don't know where they are, your first stop should be to get a credit report. There are a lot of advertisements out there for Credit Karma and freecreditreport.com, and I don't know all of them. But the Fair Credit Reporting Act created this site here, annualcreditreport.com. It is an absolutely free credit report once every 12 months from all three of the credit bureaus. So if you are unsure if you have private loans or you don't know exactly where they all are, then this is where you want to go. You want to get that credit report, and then you'll be able to see all of your private loans. A lot of people also aren't sure what their interest rates are. So for federal loans, my best recommendation is to go to this site, studentaid.ed.gov, which is another federal site, and use their repayment estimator. The repayment estimator will pull in all of your federal loan information from all of your loan holders. It'll show you, again, what your balance is, and it'll show you your interest rate. So you'll have a better grasp of what you have going on there. And it also will allow you to put in your own income information to estimate what all of your payments are under all of the different plans. So you can kind of get a better gauge of what kind of plan you could apply for, what your payments would look like under all of the plans. It also gives you how much you'd pay over time, so you know how expensive these plans are for you. So another thing that people ask is how they get better federal interest rates, or how they can refinance. There's no refinancing in the federal program. If the only way to get a different rate would be to consolidate your loans, so you bring all of your loans into one bucket, but that rate will be a weighted average of all the underlying loans rates, rounded up to the nearest 1/8%. So there's no benefit to do that just for an interest rate. If you're doing it for ease of paying your bills, that's perfectly fine, or to benefit from something else, but it's not going to give you a better interest rate. You Also, you can, for your private student loans, you can either look at your loan documentation that you may or may not have kept all these years, or you can contact your loan holder directly to find out what your interest rate is. So now I'd like to move on to repayment options. Now, once you now these are specifically designed for federal loans. When it comes to private loans, it's all dependent on that lender, what type of loan you had, and what the terms and conditions were. Everything I'm going to talk about with this slide has to do with federal student loans. So all borrowers are automatically placed in a 10-year standard plan. So you have 120 payments of exactly the same amount. Payments are typically high, but you tend to pay less interest over time. There is also an extended plan, which goes to 25 years, and a graduated plan that is 10 years, but payments increase over time. The plans that are getting a lot of media coverage right now are income-driven repayment plans. So they base the payments on your income. There are currently 5 options, which leads to a lot of confusion. So I provide this little chart here to hopefully sum them up for you and give you the specifics. If you wanted more information about these, or you wanted to dig a little bit deeper, I've written articles about these at our website, saltmoney.org, and you can go there, and it's completely free to use. You would just need to register. You have to do a free registration to use the site. You can also get that information at the site from the previous slide at studentaid.ed.gov. Okay, so there's these 5 plans, 2 different income-based repayment plans, which are known as IBR, income contingent, which is ICR, pay-as-you-earn, which is shortened to pay, and revised pay-as-you-earn, which is shortened to repay. Your payments are capped at 10%, 15%, or 20% of your discretionary income per month. You would need to reapply annually, and your payments will fluctuate with your income. So as your income goes up, your payments will go up, and as your income goes down, your payments go down. It just depends on what you've made in the previous year. After 20 or 25 years of eligible payments, depending on which plan, your balance would be forgiven but would be taxable. Both IBR plans and pay require that you have a partial financial hardship to qualify. Pay and new IBR are only for newer borrowers, and ICR and repay do not require a partial financial hardship. So it doesn't matter how much you make, it doesn't matter what your disposable income is, you'd be eligible, and it doesn't matter how old your loans are. Okay, and I'll take any questions you have once we get to that section 2. The last thing I want to talk about with you is public service loan forgiveness. I recognize that not everyone works for an eligible employer, but public service loan forgiveness is for federal student loans. Basically, if you work for any public or nonprofit center full-time, you may qualify. So you need to have direct loans, and you can figure out if you have direct loans. This is a federal program, but there's 2 different federal programs. You can figure that out by going to NSLDS, and you'd be able to see if you have direct loans or non-direct loans. If you don't have direct loans, you can always consolidate to become eligible. You'd need to make payments under the standard 10-year plan, either IBR plan, ICR, pay, or repay. After making 120 eligible payments in no less than 10 years, your remaining balance would be forgiven but wouldn't be taxable, unlike the income-driven repayment plans. This forgiveness option was created to help people who work in public service or for nonprofits who tend to make less money, and to encourage people who have to get degrees to work in these fields and probably make less than in the corporate sector, so that they aren't scared off by the debt that they have to take out. Parent Plus, one thing I want to say here, and I'm not sure if this applies to everyone on the call, but Parent Plus loans are only eligible for this plan if they're consolidated and repaid under ICR. Otherwise, they're not eligible. and the first forgiveness hasn't actually occurred yet. It's only payments after October 1, 2007, and so the first forgiveness would actually be awarded next October, so October 1, 2017. And that's all I had for you for a summary of everything.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. And for everyone on the call, that's Ashley's information. We're going to leave that up there for a minute. I'd really like to ask if there are any questions. I actually have two points and questions that I want to bring up, but please type in your questions or comments in the chat box if you have any. My first, just on the public service loan forgiveness, if actually we can go back to that slide. So I just want to emphasize that that for that, the idea for that is that, let's say you work in a nonprofit early education and care center and you've been paying your loans for 10 years. And so in 2017, you get all of your materials together and you would apply to that. And if you have been making regular payments for those 10 years, the balance of your loan, so whatever's left, would be forgiven. So meaning that you don't have to pay the balance back. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that concept behind it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley.
No, that's correct. The only thing I wanted to say is you have to make sure that you pay under these plans that I list here in the second bullet. The reason I say that is I get a lot of questions from people saying, I've been working for such and such nonprofits, or I've been working for the government for so many years, will I qualify? And then when I dig in a little deeper, they've been on an extended plan for 5 years, or they have a loan in the other loan program, not direct loans. So you need to be very sure that you're paying everything correctly. I didn't include the link because the link is really long, but I can send out the link to what's called the Employment Certification Form. And what you want to do is annually you complete this form with your employer. And basically they sign off saying that you worked full-time for them and they are a nonprofit or a public employer. And then you send it to your loan holder. Your loan holder will then make sure that the payments that you made during those months were eligible payments. Mm-hmm. If they aren't, they'll let you know so that you know. And then you start counting. You start counting how many payments you've made toward the required 120. That will hopefully keep people on track to know that all of their payments were good, or the payments they made recently didn't work. Another thing to think about that is if you bounce around to different centers, or let's say the center you worked at previously closed, or you just for whatever reason you're not at that center, they may not have your employment records for more than 5 years. So you might lose out because your employer can't certify that you worked during that time, mm-hmm. full time.
And another point about that, Ashley, is that early education and care is sort of a not clearly, nonprofit or public system. So there are different settings, and I don't remember what's in that language, and so I think that I think most programs are sort of nonprofit, but if it's a private program or for-profit, would you then not qualify?
No, you would. So you'd need to make sure that you're a 501c3 organization with the IRS code, and you can ask your employer or HR department, or somebody would have that information.
Okay.
Or it's a public entity. If you're at a Head Start program, that would definitely fall under a qualified program. But if it's a for-profit corporate center, let's say, then they don't fall under the public service loan forgiveness umbrella.
Okay. And we do have a question. It says, regarding the federal public service loan forgiveness, can you clarify that it is not taxable? So I don't know.
In no way,
I'm not sure
form.
What exactly in terms of the payments or what's forgiven.
So what's forgiven is any balance you have as of your 120th payment. So whatever balance you have remaining would be forgiven. And that amount would not be reflected on your tax return as taxable income. Where it comes to the income-driven repayment plans we talked about, any remaining balance that you had would be considered taxable income.
Okay.
You can't, I'm sorry, this is kind of a bit of a tangent. If you were on one of those plans and you went the whole 20 or 25 years and you applied for forgiveness and you were low income, you can apply for insolvency. And there's a form with the IRS, and if you want to talk to a tax professional, they could help you do that, just basically to show that this income was not income that you saw and that you make low, you fall under a certain threshold. And I'm not a tax professional by any means, but you can apply for this insolvency so it doesn't hit your adjusted gross income that you'd have.
Okay, and this person says, I ask because I understand some loan forgiveness programs are taxable.
None of the federal, the PSL, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, Teacher Loan Forgiveness, they are not taxable. The income-driven repayment plans forgiveness is taxable, and depending on, there are state-run forgiveness programs, there are private forgiveness programs. Those, it's all dependent on the state and the program, so I can't opine on it or tell you more about it because it really depends on the program.
Mm-hmm. And just one quick thing that I wanted to say about these repayment plans too is just that to make sure everyone knows that you have the power to ask about these different plans and to see whether you qualify for them. So I think some people don't realize that they could potentially lower their monthly payments if they really investigate and look at some of these repayment plans.
Yeah, and I would recommend anyone who's with us today to go to that studentaid.ed.gov site I mentioned in my second slide to estimate what your payments would be under that bottom link to estimate what your payments would be under any of these plans. Because if you're struggling at all with your payments, that's the best option to see what your payments would be. And you can, before you apply, you can talk to your loan holder to verify it with them. You can complete the form or call them and ask them for help. You could call us at SALT and ask us for help as well. I have my direct contact information there, and I could get you in contact with our counselors here to help you apply directly. Don't think that what your circumstances are doesn't mean you wouldn't qualify for anything. I'm not a miracle worker, but there are a lot of lower payment options out there. There are a lot of flexible plans.
Great. Are there any other questions? Please feel free. We'll just wait another minute and see if anyone has any other questions for Ashley. Great. So we just want to sort of finish this part of the webinar, which is just to say, we really appreciate any feedback you have or questions. Does anyone have anything that they want to ask about the early educators roadmap to a college degree or any suggestions? Actually, we're going to unmute your lines now. Oh, here's a couple questions. So one question is there a new loan forgiveness program for human service folks? Do you know of anything, Ashley, for that particular industry, human service workers? Somebody mentioned this at a dialogue that was held yesterday at Wheelock College that the early education and care field was invited to.
Can you define what human services is?
Yeah, so I think that includes like home health aides, people that work directly with the elderly, people that are going into people's homes, that kind of thing, personal care attendants. I believe that's sort of the category.
Okay. I don't know which one this person is talking about specifically. Kira, will we be able to send out an email follow-up to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. I wrote it's an ebook about forgiveness, and I basically have done research over the years and found all the forgiveness programs that I can find and compiled them in one place. I will send that out to the group. I don't know if it's in there, and I apologize. I have an okay memory, but I cannot memorize all 100 of them. But let me send that out to the group, and it may be included in there. And hopefully that will help. I don't know what one we're talking about, but I know that there are a lot out there for people who, not necessarily primary caregivers, but people who, there's social workers, or I've found programs for social workers, and a lot of them are dependent upon the state. But I'm going to look that up because I haven't heard of that one or I don't remember that one specifically.
That would be great. That would be wonderful if you could help when we can share that information with everyone who registered for the webinar. Any other thoughts or questions? I just want to mention that we have printed postcards that we can send on our roadmap just to help drive people to the website, and we want to share that. So if you have any ideas about how we can get more people to know about the web resource and pass out those postcards, then we'd love for that help, and please let us know. We'll also be adding all of you to our monthly newsletter, which goes out if you're not on it already. We'd love to add you and stay in touch. We also have a survey that we are sending of people that look at the roadmap website online, because we want to really get a sense of how people are using it and what they might find helpful. So you may get an email from us as well about that survey. Anything else? Thank you so much for joining and making the time. Thank you so much again to Ashley Norwood of American Student Assistance. Thanks, Ashley.
Oh, thank you,
and
Kira.
please,
thank you everyone for coming
please
today.
be in touch, and thank you so much for joining.